All right, and with the music done, it is time to speak. Oh, Vic is here. Hello. So the audience participation reminder, the question for this week is, who's your favorite Dark Horse character in Parahumans? So someone who has few scenes but left a big impression on you. And in a work this large, there are many that speak to different people. So, for the themes on this chapter, duplicitousness from Taylor. That's sort of a how far will she go when she needs to do something like sort of set particulate up. And the fact that she is willing to do this impresses Fierce. So duplicitousness. Vic says, this was a long speed draw because perspective and geometry is hard. Yeah. Everyone's all warped by the bubble. And Greg is here, hey. So, yeah. Let's see here. And, you know, as for other themes, I guess the like implacability and inevitability of the Endbringers seems to be I mean, maybe it's just maybe that's not a theme, but it feels right in this section. It's sort of driven home at the very end of this chapter. They keep sort of keep that going. Anyway, looking into the chapter, it starts off with reminding us where we are. Particular says some sort of swear in another language, and I believe he speaks Punjabi from the other chapter, if I'm remembering right. Fierce sort of brushes him off, but they're watching Behemoth on the monitor still, and Behemoth just keeps pushing forward, keeps defeating the defending capes, and getting closer to India Gate, etc. And he keeps killing off important people, you know. The way that Taylor says it is, each time they fought, he did damage. Capes perished. Tinker devices were turned into lumps of hot metal. And then Fierce is able to intuit something's wrong. Taylor explains about Chevalier getting attacked. Taylor says, I'm not going to ask you any questions about how you guys operate, but it's obvious you're organized. And then Fierce, like the SNL dinner sketch.
Careful.
We get that careful. So then Taylor sort of thinks around how she's going to talk about this. Yeah. Careful! Oh, the speed draw's over. We get to see the final image. Woo! Looks pretty good. Pretty good. I had always sort of, despite the text, imagined the time bubble being larger than it is, but it says pretty plain as day in the text that it's half the size of her cell, and I figure her cell's probably like a normal room, so it's gotta be small. Vic echoing careful, and then says, Tecton is trying to stand as small as possible, but these are a lot of large homies. Yeah, I mean, it's like, the dogs are the worst of it. We gotta hope that they're like your dogs, like real small ones, so that when they get big, they're not that big. But let's see here. So yeah, Taylor's like comparing them, and you know, herself and Fierce, I should say. She's comparing herself to him aloud to be able to negotiate with him. She's describing what she used to have in her old team and how they, you know, need to cooperate and have information flowing and stuff within the team. And then Fierce is like, hang on, you're talking too fast, and I'm really tired to be listening to all this English. Just calm it down for a second. And then when she inquires about how long it's been since he has slept, it's 3 days, because they screwed up the timing on this. They tried to set up his super attack for when they thought that the Endbringers would show up, and then they missed the date by a couple. Which makes you think Taylor should have been, like, more ready in a way when the Endbringer attack did happen, because they were already over the clock, but, you know, whatever. She becomes a real clock watcher after this, to be honest. Vic says, they're low-powered dogs, nice and portable. Taylor drives me crazy with the talking. She keeps correcting Fierce when she understands what he means. Yeah, that totally does happen. She said, and uses big-ass words and talks too fast, and idioms. She thinks she's being helpful. You know, I'm gonna chalk this one up to stress. She's not making good calls, and I agree that it's not helpful. But it's not helpful. Very true. She's trying to bridge the gap. I feel like she's trying to like when she does the gavel, that's the one time, because he's like, yes, heavy-handed like the judge's hammer. Gavel? The gavel. Harsh justice. So, like, she does grease the wheels sometimes. So, it's hit and miss. I'm taking it back. I'm taking a middle ground stance on this. She's not entirely unhelpful. And you know... Oh, wait, Vic says, I think she identifies with Fierce, and she would want someone to do this to her. Yeah. I suppose you're right. Yeah. I agree. Yeah. So she is advocating for communication, saying communication is key, etc. He is, he's going along with the conversation. He likes talking to her, and I do think that as she intuits later in the conversation, he identifies with her, and he's like, I was cool like you once, basically. He's like Obi-Wan telling Luke, oh no, I mean, you'll figure it out. Very, very uncaring about the end result, but like confident in the person, I think. But anyway, so he's willing to stake everything to do this big attack on Behemoth. He's ready to do it real soon, but Taylor is advocating for him to hold off. They describe the battle a little bit, because they keep watching the battle on the monitors. We get like a clock blocker mentioned here. He's done the big like gloves with time frozen wires, and they're like bashing him into them. And it's cool and all, but then Behemoth kind of just cuts himself out by just sheer strength and not caring about losing bits of himself, which is pretty awesome. And then all the clock blocker wires fall after a big behemoth hand clap. But you know, Taylor's feeling some type of way. Shit, I hoped he was okay. Clockblocker wasn't a bad guy, as heroes went. And so, you know, Fierce is like questioning how long she's been in the game. She says it's been a few months, and he's like, I've been doing this for 15 years. And then he starts, Vic says, almost definitely about, Taylor Clockblocker. She loves him. She doesn't think about anyone else like that in this battle. Lol. It's true. She really, yeah. Yeah, she has a stronger reaction in some ways. Yeah, it's like it really feels like this is an anime, and she's a tsundere, and yep, I said it, and she's like, it's not like I like that clock blocker, that idiot, that hero. He's fine. But yeah. So I guess he says he's been doing this for 10 years, but it feels like he could say any number. He's like, I've done this forever. And then he says he has no faith left after 10 years. She's questioning putting so much on the line, so many people's lives, and he's saying it's worth it, no matter how big a city might be, to beat one of the Endbringers because of how like existentially dangerous they are. It's like a whole thing. So they're willing to do this, and he had certainly hoped, you know, that this would be the one of the other two Endbringers. Although it's hard to say. I don't think it would have worked on the Simurgh for various reasons. Like, I think the Simurgh would have just slipped the noose. I think Leviathan is the one that I would most want to use the Fierce attack on, but yeah. Vic says about the clock blocker Weaver thing, they just respect each other. A lot of dotting and exclamation points in these messages. Yeah, Fierce talks about the people in his like literal civilian community he knows, and about his daughter and stuff, and that he's willing to put all of that on the line at a chance to kill Behemoth. And you know, Taylor thinks about her own situation with her territory, says easier to say than do, and then Fierce says that he's had to make a similar choice in the past, and he sacrificed his wife and sons to stop some other cape, who he describes as a monster. He says, I let them die because it meant a monster would remain gone. What merit is a gamble, a sacrifice, if you stake things that matter nothing to you? And this is when she sort of evaluates him, thinks he's no older than 35, but looks, you know, pretty haggard. And when she doesn't respond to Fierce, he kind of smiles and turns back to the TV and stuff. And once she's looking at the TV, she sort of looks at it for a second and then realizes Particulate is trying to do a thing. He's scanning the time bomb, the big light generating time portal thing. and he draws another different tiny gun from a little tinker thing from his cloak, and then wait, I don't know if he's wearing a cloak. Maybe he from his lab coat. He's from his, and okay, so he's his lab coat. I always imagine a lot of people wearing cloaks because of being like easy to imagine. Foil's got a cloak on, maybe Exalt wears a cloak. You know, they don't really, but in my mind they do. They're all wearing cloaks. It makes it easy to grab small objects. Vic says, this is some sus stuff that Taylor does, lol. Yeah. So, so Particulate tries to silently, knowing they can't speak the same languages as each other, tries to body language to Taylor, like, cover me or whatever. And then Taylor gives him a nod, like, yeah, do it. And then, oh, well, he's got a flowing coat, so that's maybe why. So he grabs like a grenade thing, and then she uses silk thread to draw the gun away from its target and to like pull on the other hand. So everything's going haywire, and Particulate doesn't get anything done. And Fierce, and she's all like, no, don't. When Taylor yells no here and is like totally, this moment's so funny. It's so bad, but I love it, and so does Fierce. Greg says directly under the bus. Vic says she had to expect that he was going to get murdered by the teleporter for this. It's true. I still think Particulate was going wild though, because he was gonna blow up the bomb thing that was gonna like undirected just kill all of them if it went off. Maybe he thought he could like defuse it or something, but I don't know. His strats usually seem to be to throw a Molotov cocktail at a problem, and then you have a different problem. So, but I imagine that when Taylor yells no, that she sounds exactly like the guy in Fateful Findings before he gets shot next to his car. No! Vic says, I guess the implication is that she's influenced by her passenger. I don't know. Maybe she thought that he was doomed from the beginning, and that's why she was willing to gamble to betray him. The theme is gambling. She makes a gamble. Fierce makes a gamble. It's all gambling. Vic says, cause she does the thing, and Fierce is like, you did that on purpose. And then she's like, huh? What did I do? It's like it just happens, and she doesn't think about why. I think that's kind of true. Like she says, okay, so I'm gonna just read this part. Okay, so he scans the thing. He draws the gun from the lab coat. She thinks another disintegration. He sees her look. Makes sure Fierce isn't looking, even though he's looking at a reflection. Indicates with his eyes what he's gonna do. He looks at Fierce, and then she thinks he had a solution in mind, a way to disable the explosion and stop Fierce. I had only an instant to decide before the teleporter intervened or Fierce noticed what was going on. I met Particulate's eyes and nodded once. Kurt. The scanner disappeared into a pocket, and he drew something like a grenade from within his flowing coat. Then he drew the gun on Fierce. I felt the tug of the thread in my hand attached to the gun. Without thinking, I hauled on it, pulling it off target. The gun hit one screen 2 feet to Fierce's right at stomach level. It exploded into a swirling cloud of black dust. Yeah, she doesn't think too hard about it. Don't think about it too hard. Too hard. And then Vic says, yeah, it's like her passenger compels her to pull the threads. I guess it is like that. I never like to over-attribute stuff to the passenger, but I'll accept it. I think she identifies more with Fierce than with Particulate regardless. So, like, I think subconsciously there's like a lot of reasons she's guided to doing this instead of letting him get killed. But I also think that there's a good chance that if Particulate had killed Fierce, that that they just have exploded the thing. But then doubling down, she does do the nod. She doesn't shake her head no. Vic says, yeah, and I think that her passenger was like, oh, great plan to get Fierce on my side. Yeah. No, don't kill him. The teleporter shows up but doesn't auto kill Particulate, just teleports Particulate away. He disarms, it says he disarms him of the pistol and the grenade. I don't know if he teleports them away or slaps them out of his hands or what, but yeah, he probably sends them elsewhere before taking Particulate with him, but and then yeah, this is where she's being unhelpful and correcting him. When she says not to kill him, Fierce is like, you would feel blameful? And then she's like, guilty. And Fierce is smiling at her, and the way she interprets it, and I'm willing to just take her at face value on this, is disappointed and proud and condemnation all at the same time. Then he reveals that he was watching her in the screen, and he knows that that she set him up. And she goes, had I? It's so funny. Not wholly consciously. I'd set up the string, but how much of that was intentional? Was it habit now to have a measure on hand when dealing with any weapon? Makes sense. She goes, did I do that? Yeah. Very, very Urkel of her. I don't know why, but it's just so funny. Like, passenger or no passenger, she's just like doing stuff, and then like, I guess I didn't think about it. I focused on the swarm, focused on the cords and threads that trace the room. She realizes that she has cords everywhere, and she wasn't even thinking about it. And then she's got spiders all over the room, like ready to work, cut, or tie threads all over the place. And she's like, is it the passenger or is it me? I don't even know. And she says, I guess I did. And then she cuts all the lines to make sure she doesn't suddenly pull Fierce around or do something drastic like that. I like this part. Fierce says, I was not born yesterday. This silliness could have gotten you killed. Would have, if I did not feel need for outsider to challenge my ideas. And then she kind of makes a joke. She says, I guess a gamble's not meaningful if you're not staking something important, right? And Fierce finds it as funny as I do, so he smiles. And there's a twinkle in his eye. Yeah, I really like this part. Fierce is such a good, like, essentially one-off character. He's in 2 chapters, so maybe they talk to him over bug speak in one more chapter after this. But either way, he's very, very light on the chapters, but very heavy in my mind. And so, they have a back and forth. They sort of cool the tensions. Fierce, I think, is impressed with her for being so underhanded. She justifies aloud that he wasn't really an ally and he was really chaotic. He doesn't know what chaotic is, but she explains. She says, just like you, but I didn't get the ability to manipulate time or create this sort of time bomb. I work on a smaller scale. And I don't think that she was joking at all, but Fierce thinks she was joking and says, I get the joke. It is joke, small. And then she smiles. She normally only smiles when she's hurting someone, and she's smiling post-hurting someone right now because she's hanging out with another person like her. And she goes, this guy was borderline unhinged, too much power and too unstable a package. And I almost liked him. Almost, Taylor. Come on. You do. You're like, this is my homie. It's Fierce. Vic says she smiles because she's tricking this old man. Exactly. I think she's being pretty genuine with him, though. I think almost everything she says to Fierce is in earnest, which is... There's like a weird honest, dishonest, like, dichotomy. There's always been a thing like that with Taylor, where there's things where she'll be, like, completely upfront with people, and then other things that seemingly have, like, equal importance or even more importance, where she's, like, where she'll lie and, like, either feel bad about it or lie and justify it. There's a lot of, like, theming around. There's another thing. The theme of her lying and telling the truth alternately at odd moments. Alien Cat Daddy CGS shows up in the chat. Taylor is like top 10 most unstable characters in this story. Yeah, she's pretty unstable on the chart. I agree. She's doing things like suddenly deciding to like tell particulate yes, do the attack so that I can throw you under the bus. And she's talking about borderline unhinged, and I can't believe me, Taylor Hebert, is interacting with someone who's borderline unhinged. Unbelievable. A first for me. Taylor Hebert. But anyway, so he asks her basically, like, what are you trying to get at? Like, what are you trying to do? She just she says, I'll work with you on hitting Behemoth with the time bomb. He's like, oh, what about just a minute ago when you said that you'd try and stop me? She's like, look, I get it. You proved that there's no change in your mind. So let me link up with the heroes and we're gonna fucking hit him as hard as we can to buy you an opening. And you gotta hit him when the time is just right. You gotta have faith in me. You gotta buy hand more time, as the saying goes from Lando. Greg hits us with the quote, borderline unhinged, too much power and too unstable a package, and I almost liked him. I almost liked him. Yes, the corrected tsundere version. Or no, I almost am like him. Okay, no, that's the more revealing. Greg has the more. It's still funny, but the more revealing. I misread that. It's, and I almost am like him. Almost like him. I think it's funnier when she's like more reserved about. Anyway, yeah. So she has no self-reflection about how she's just like him. But you know, she does realize a deep truth that she's not going to win this argument, and she's just got to direct the flood, not try to dam it up. And that she will do. She convinces him to stake one more wage, one more gamble on his faith, and he gives her 15 minutes and then teleports her out of there. She didn't have time to gather her bugs, and her face is full of smoke. I know she's wearing a mask at this point because she says, even with the filter of my mask. But we still, at this point, have no idea what lenses she has on her mask. I've looked and looked, and I don't know. Is she Weaver-faced, or is she Skitter-faced? Vic says, tisk tisk, Taylor. He's never thinking about fashion. Well, sometimes she'll think about the color of the lenses because she'll be like, oh, when I took off the lenses, everything tinted from one color to another, and it really changed my view. It's almost like by putting up this facade, this second personality, I'm able to change the way I'm viewing things and compartmentalize better. I don't know, something. And Behemoth, far too close. Yeah. So, she is sort of feeling around with the bugs that she has at her disposal. Lucky for her, this city still has a zillion bugs because it's a really big city. And, just there's kind of bugs everywhere. One thing I've learned about the world, there's a lot of bugs in a lot of places. They're all around us in the air, flying about and buzzing, So, she feels sort of senses lost at the heavy smoke pressure. She says that it's sort of buffeting her around. I felt like there was a pressure here, as if the smoke had substance, and even Behemoth existence somewhere nearby was weighing on me. She's feeling around and finding individual capes just by feel. She's trying to find the costumes of people she knows. She finds Lygia's conch shell mask. She doesn't find Citrine, which she later sort of realizes is because Citrine's taken off the dress after Accord died, because Citrine has some goddamn sense. The whole evening dress thing, I'm sorry, Accord, you are so gender essentialist brained that you can't be reasoned with on battle efficiency. No wonder he never took over Boston. But one bug per cape, the rest scouting. Sometimes the way she thinks about things is just so funny about her bug brain. But Luigi's having a big fight with Behemoth, and her power is seemingly one of those ones with a really high upper limit. She's making a really wide water spout portal. I know a lot of people probably, if they're just casual, they've read the book once, might not remember Lygia. I think her power is quite cool, despite the fact that we know almost nothing about her background or character. She's just one of the high-level Accord people who got cauldron powers. and she's got this big ass portal, and it's getting like larger and larger, and just dumping and dumping water, and it seems to be working. But the problem is that when something works, then oftentimes the Endbringer will start focusing down whoever's doing that thing. Taylor like says aloud, "Run, run, Legia," but that does not happen, and you know, when Behemoth starts lashing out with the lightning, then she starts like trying to suck Behemoth into the portal. She turns the portal from blow to suck. It's the opposite of what happens in Spaceballs. So she tries to slurp Behemoth through the portal, which is a good idea. I think slurping an Endbringer into an alternate dimension and never fighting them again, pretty lit. But unfortunately, despite like Eidolon trying to punch him through the portal and stuff, Behemoth has his claw latched to the sort of imperceptible side of the portal between this world and Waterworld, TMCR. You know, he seems to be like losing power as he goes through the portal, like he's losing connection to where his power comes from, and the portal's starting to like close on him, but goddamn Behemoth claws his way out anyway. I remember this being like, when I was first reading it, such an oh moment, and then like a god damn it. Close it, I thought. Sever it. But she didn't. Not an option, it seemed. So yeah. Anyway, trying to move past this, even though I think it's one of the coolest moments. So she finds who she deems her underlings, a group of the Chicago wards. It's all of them. None of them have been killed off. Unfortunately, in Wanton's cloud of like slowly rotating objects, he seems to have increased in power, but he's got like wounded people on stretchers sort of orbiting him, and also his own arm. It says his or someone else's, but I can spoil that it's his arm. Vic says, calling them underlings is crazy. Taylor is so naturally evil. Yeah. It's bizarre that she calls her ward's teammates underlings. Oh, boy. But she catches up to Wanton and Tectons on a bike, and they're still on the Tinker bikes, you know. And then they're doing a staggered retreat, they say, and they're putting up walls to try and block strikes and stuff. Annex is slooping around, and then once she catches up to them, Ligia gets super electrocuted. She gets lightning bolted by Behemoth, thunderstruck even, and the geyser sort of, or the sucking force of the water is not very powerful anymore, and is lessening, and Behemoth is able to get fully out of the portal back into the real world. Taylor's impressed with the fact that the portal hadn't gone away when Ligia died, which is kind of... There's something about that. Even killing her hadn't forced the portal closed. Damn. Although it would have been good for them if he had sort of self-destructed the bottom half of his body by killing her and zapping away the connection to it. Again, naturally evil, thinking about how one of her recent allies and allies in this fight could have died and had been able to anyway. I mean, she's not wrong. It's just a little evil pilled, Taylor. Evil coded. She apologizes to be out of breath. I mean, that's not what she says. She just says sorry. Cuff seems to be like leveled out, which Taylor's like, but it seems like she's been hardened by this battle. Tecton can't talk because he was accidentally clipped by another cape's power. Grace is mad that she was gone, but is settled a bit by Tecton, and then she sort of is asking about the command structure. A bunch of people are dead. Rhyme is, but Prism might be next in command, but it's she's injured and it's unclear. Dragon and Defiant aren't there. They don't know if Revel's there, but they saw her 2 minutes ago. And they're all like talking about how Cyan's not going to show up. And so Taylor's explaining to them like just a 5-second answer of that she found a weapon that Behemoth is looking for, and that even though it's an energy weapon, they're going to try and direct it at him and see if they can make it work, because it's coming whether they want it or not. She wants Annex to come with her, so she has Annex slurp into her costume, and he's like, but I'll be right against your body. And she's like, I do not give a single fuck. And then his head is poking out of her flight pack like another head, which incredible stuff. I love that for them. And then she flies over to the Undersiders. She tells them, I like this line. I'd have to gamble, make compromises, take risks. I look to the others. Reach deep inside. Find your second wind. Find your third wind, if you can. Rendezvous with me over there if you can make it in 8 or 10 minutes. Just like, might be the last words they ever speak to each other, and like, badass. I don't know. I think she's awesome. And then she fully sets out the wings. She knows that they might get fragged, but she just doesn't care. She's got to go. Like, this is a now or never type moment. And then the Chicago wards start doing the same. They're no longer doing as much of a staggered retreat and just going. And then they find the Undersiders, and they're all hunkered down under like 3 Parian creations and like a bunch of dogs, and they're too close, basically. I mean, they don't get like leapt at yet, but they need to retreat, and they're not retreating yet. And then I do like when she lands in the midst of the group, and this is a classic moment where even Regent, as deadpan as he is, goes, "Ah, Jesus fuck!" And then she goes, "Right, I had 2 heads." And then Annex starts flowing into the ground, and he makes a bunch of barriers in front of them and stuff, and uses debris more effectively. Gru has burns and is at the hospital, and they sort of are talking. She asks about Revel. Regent's has zapped, and Taylor thinks, you gotta be fucking kidding me. And then she thinks to herself, Fierce might decide to just set off the bomb if it's really that bad. Taylor's trying to reason with him, and is like, she absorbs energy. She might be okay. Regent's like, she got hit by lightning. Kind of lethal. Interesting that you say that, Regent. Lightning. Lethal. Rachel snorted. obviously because her dogs can tank lightning hits, even though one of them is retching about with strange giant beast noises. She basically tells them she needs to get pointed towards Revel or anyone else in the hero's chain of command. Perian sort of sends her on her way, pointing it away. And then she sees the Yangban, and she moves past them, feeling her powers get stronger, and gets creeped out because she's already worried about her passenger. She lands next to Revel, who's like on the ground, and has Dispatch and Exalt with her, like sort of tending to her. And Exalt's actually the one in charge right now, so she did find the chain of command. And she tries to convince them. It's funny when she goes, the Texas Protectorate leader, and then he goes, Houston Protectorate leader. Yes. There's something funny about that. But yeah, she tries to convince them that they need to set up this plan against Behemoth, and they've only got a couple minutes. Exalt says no. She says that they've got to try because this is going to happen whether they want it to or not. And Revel says to expend the weapon because if that's what Behemoth is after. And then Exalt's saying they don't have enough information. And then Taylor gets like upsetty and leaves. She's wasting too much time here. She flies away. She's thinking about how much time she has left. She's thinking about what she has at her disposal, and also she thinks about how like the Protectorate and wards might not be worth saving if they don't help in this moment, which is a little over dramatic, but I get why she's feeling that. This is a critical moment, non-trivial, some would say, and so. She sees the Yangban and she just like goes right for him, and the Chicago wards are meeting up with the Undersiders at the same time. The three Protectorate members catch up with her. They say that the Yangban betrayed them. Taylor's pretty shocked, and then one of the guys on the Yangban side says to defend their, he's saying the truth, but he says, a traitor among us. And then he gets snapped at for having spoken in English. Maybe this whole thing where they only speak in Chinese and they hate, communicating with people, maybe that doesn't help in a situation like this. I don't know. Maybe. Just maybe. But then Exalt says, we do need all the help we can get. And then says, you want to make amends? And then once the English-speaking one does translate it for the rest of them, then they all cry out the sort of affirmation, the Shide. I don't know how that's pronounced, but there we go, Shide. And that they're all into it, and they all start heading towards the group. She thinks 20 Yangban, Exalt, A Day's Revel, Dispatch, the Chicago wards, the Undersiders, Citrine, and me. The sum total of our defensive line. Which is crazy, because you got to think they started out with a couple hundred capes. Let's see here. Behemoth is getting way too close, they say. They have very few people capable of holding him back. And then, she says all that stuff about the defensive line, but I do believe Eidolon is still floating about there, and same with Alexandria. I'm not 100% sure what they're doing right now, but I imagine they're flying. And so she's trying to get her teammates to run, but nothing is getting through to them because they can't hear the bugs making noise and they can't see the bugs through the smoke writing words. And so she starts biting them. They're going, but Behemoth be leaping. And then she like saves Citrine by landing next to her and getting her back up on the dogs with anti-grav help and stuff. You know, you got to get some saves in the book to sort of keep people on side. That's Citrine. She's a real I will begrudgingly pay this debt type of person. But then Fierce, she's getting so much power from the Yangban that her power extends all the way to where like Fierce is, which is crazy. And so she says to Fierce that they need more time. She says, wait, almost. And then she moves most of the bugs away because she realizes they've just been sort of bugging and biting Fierce, which is like not helpful. Yeah, so the Yangban are shooting, Golem's doing stuff, Tecton's doing walls, you know, everybody's fighting, they're all going crazy, Citrine's making sure that the lightning isn't hitting them, and then, you know, they're all doing their thing at the same time, but, and Taylor's like, why couldn't the Yangban have done this at the start? Damn everybody! She literally says, damn people, damn them all. Which I find very funny. And then Behemoth starts lightning bolting people, and there's a problem though. He starts knocking out Yangban members who are too far on the sides. And then they're trying to save the Yangban members who are, you know, raising shields and stuff. And then they, you know, basically get to a point where Imp reveals herself to everybody. And she had been saving one of the Yangban members who had fallen. And Behemoth is immune to her power, seemingly, and is like directing flames at like flames and lightning all over the place. They're doing all sorts of things because he goes from lightning to flames. You know, he's switching up, and he's getting close enough that the kill aura might happen. So you know, everybody's doing their best, and everybody's jumping out to do one last thing, and then Regent goes, fuck it. And then Taylor goes, Regent! And then he goes, hey, shit, Crumb! Easy! And then he gets got before he says whatever he was going to say. He stops doing the flame attack on the Yangban and switches back to lightning. And then, rip in peace, Regent. Regent was snuffed out, dead. A small sound escaped my mouth, but there was no time to react. So she uses her anti-grav flight pack. She calls out a retreat to her people, yelling individual orders from some other people. She's getting the flight pack to Imp so that she can like launch her toward them, basically. She's getting everybody going. Fierce is trying to get Fierce is basically saying there's no more time. He says, if he advances any closer to me, I won't have any option but to strike. And she says, wait! Through the bugs. And then Imp grabs onto the flight pack, and let's see, she is able to zing her over to them, more or less. she's finding everybody with the bugs. She can't see Annex at first, but he's in Tecton's bike. They get into this little time bubble, and then she has Dispatch get into the midst of the main group, and then set up his power. Silence. Stillness. The buzz of my power at the periphery of my consciousness was a fraction of what it might otherwise be, limited to the bugs that crawled in the recesses of my costume. There was only the press of bodies, 2 dogs, and all the rest of us in an area smaller than my jail cell. Yeah. And this is where she sort of, she breaks up for a moment, emotionally because of, breaks down, I should say, because of, Regent dying. You know, it's a real shock, and it just happened. I'm sorry that I don't feel more sorry about it. I'm so, like, I've listened to this story so many times that it's almost like, I don't know, it feels so inevitable, I guess, to my viewing of the story by this point. Vic says she starts breaking down, dancing on his grave. Yeah, definitely what I meant. I just go, goodbye, Regent. That's kind of, yeah. That's kind of where I'm at. I just go, bye. Anyway, bye, Regent. So she asks how long they'll have. Dispatch isn't sure, but just a couple minutes. She's thinking. Tecton says, sorry about your pal. She shakes her head, no. And then says, not now. Need a plan. I like it. Dispatch is broken down. He says, a plan. We run. We pray. And then Foil totally owns this fool. Says, last I heard, Scion was nowhere near. Nobody to pray to. Vic says, even though I love him. Yeah, about Regent. And then, OMG, he goes against her advice. No time for comforting, Tecton. I do like that in this moment, she's finally not, like, double standarding on this. She's actually being, like, whether or not it's because it's causing her to be super emotional, she's literally moving past it in the way that she's been, like, saying, we've got to just move past this shit right now. She's doing the thing. She's living her dream. So, yeah, Dispatch gets upset. He's like, not funny. This isn't the time to fuck around on the subject of God. And then, Taylor's annoyed with this and thinks of plans. And then she, talks to Rachel. Rachel, she's like, you want revenge? Yeah, Rachel's like, yeah, Leviathan killed my dogs. Tecton is, clearly a bit nonplussed, but it doesn't say that. He just says, Behemoth killed your friend. And then Rachel says, you know, another iteration, Leviathan killed my dogs. They both pay. And then Taylor's like, yes, they both pay. And asks the question on all of our minds, what the hell is Exalt's power? And he's like, I'm a wind guy, but, like, only one wind. I don't do 2 winds. I do 1 wind. Vic says, I feel like if you're around parahumans, you should realize that a dog-themed cape would love their dogs. Yeah. I think Tecton wanted to ground her, maybe. Not like a parent ground, like emotional grounding of, like, you know, that other guy too. I don't know. Tecton's just saying things. But yeah. So, I do think it's funny, where she goes, which explained why he hadn't helped. Fuck. Taylor's internal monologue is just so funny, like, as a reader. Anyway. She's asking about Eidolon's power, and Dispatch explains it a little bit. Asks about if Foil's power can be sort of more deliberate with what portion of a material she's using her power on. And then she's not explaining what she wants. She's just thinking. This is like your classic heist plan where they talk about planning the heist, but we don't see them plan the heist. We just see them do it. Rachel's like, you have a plan. And then she's like, yeah, I think I do. And then they gotta knock Behemoth around and distract him for just a moment, so that Fierce doesn't blast all of them instead. Dispatch tells them to explain, each of us has a role to play. Timing's essential. So's luck. And then we get a page break. This chapter's like so long. If there were any more to this last segment, it would be a different chapter. In the beginning of the book, this would definitely be a whole chapter. They'd be like, I know it's a little short, but it's very action-packed. So after they release the time bubble, they all go at once. Golem's setting up like hands so that Taylor can drop electrical power lines on them, and they're like trying to draw in lightning with that. Annex is flying about with his power, and by flying I mean in the ground. He's slooping, and the flight in this case is a word to indicate his speed and general weird sloopingness. And then Dispatch gets Eidolon and keeps using his power on them over and over, so that Eidolon has time to cycle powers, and then once he finds the right powers for the situation, then to actually give them time to grow to their full power, because as we've learned about Eidolon's power, it takes time to reach full strength each time it changes. So then boop boop boop. The Yangban are defending the team with force fields. The dogs have chain between them, and Foil has used her power's effect on the chain, and Bitch is like directing the two teams of dogs to pull the chain. And then Eidolon goes into he's getting into position. Imp threatens Taylor in a moment of weirdness. She's being weird about Regent being dead. She's upset, so she's like, well, if this is for Regent, it has to work, so I'll kill you if it doesn't work. It's like the most childish thing she said in the whole book. And Taylor just goes, or she says, we're all screwed if it doesn't. So then she goes, But yeah, so this was almost this moment of dog attack was almost the art, I think, when decisions were being made. I thought that this would be interesting to see, but we will hopefully see Behemoth soon. We'll see a full Hemoth. Actually, if we see him next chapter, we might just see well, I'll say his nickname in a minute. I give the Behemoth of next chapter a nickname from Gideon the Ninth. So anyway, Rachel was riding out there. It looks like Behemoth is going to do a clap and just completely derail their plan, but Exalt uses his one-shot power. He can only do this once, and he totally blasts Behemoth hard enough that he can't clap his hands. And Behemoth's the chain cuts through the bottom of Behemoth's feet, but they're like, we barely got him. This sucks. But then Rachel takes a chance, and she turns the dogs around for another thing, and through the power of bugs, she hears Rachel yell, "Kip up!" And the dog kips up, and it leaps, and after it's gone through the air, it says that it leaped up to the highest point on a ruined building, and the chain caught Behemoth at the knee this time. They totally lopped off the bottom half of his leg. Take that, dude. So Behemoth falls over real quick. Eidolon catches Rachel and zooms her out of there. Vic says, Imp is very sentimental, and good job, Rachel. Indeed, good job, Rachel. You did it. You tore off his leg. I mean, literally better than they've done up to now in the entire fight. They nailed it. And then at that moment, let's see here. Boop, boop, boop. Yeah, they also put a force field around him, a cone force field that goes all the way into the ground and all the way pretty high up into the sky. And Taylor says, now with her bugs, and then the force field surrounds, and the portal opens up beneath Behemoth's feet, although it should probably say beneath his foot, as he only has one. And then upward aiming, the light launches into the sky through Behemoth, covering him entirely. It destroys all the particulates in the air or whatever, and pushes everything so far up it creates a gap in all the smoke and clears the air to a certain extent. Eidolon's big force field that they took all that dispatch time to set up, it worked. It kept them all from getting energy rayed, light beamed. So they say it's a narrow column of about no more than 50 feet. We only blew up a narrow area of 50 feet. And the light finally fades, and then they see Behemoth. It says not quite Behemoth, but a skeleton. Something like a skeleton. And this is when, the doctor says, skeletons have always hated me, ever since I was a child. Anyway. Emaciated, a black-red frame dripping with ichor. It had all the key features, the basic underlying structure with the horns and the gaping mouth, the claws and the way the shoulders were broad enough to host his bulky frame, but a good 80% of him had been torn away, shredded, a skeleton covered in a veneer of meat. He was like an evil stick. I know he probably is less stick figure-like than I'm imagining, but I keep imagining him as a very spindly guy, which amuses me. I don't know. He looks like one of those electrical poles that looks like a man standing with his legs spread and his arms super out far to his sides, like one of those. Craig says, "You won't believe this weight loss trick." Yeah. And then Taylor, wanting this to be over, says, "Go," I whispered, feeling a quiet despair. "Go home. Go underground. Leave. We hurt you as badly as we've ever hurt you bastards. That's enough." Also, he's not just a stick man, he's a stick man with half a leg missing. It's like when you're playing Hangman and you have to keep making excuses to draw less of the person than the full person, but he's almost there. All right, you got half a leg left. Anyway, so this is when he starts blasting, lightning again, and she's like, "Oh no, He's just as powerful than he was before in terms of how much damage he can dish out. And I can visibly see him regenerating already. This sucks! And so Behemoth is no fool. He's not trying to hop around on one leg, which would be funny and might send out shockwaves. Maybe he should try it. He is using his arms and leg to jump around, you know, three-legged style. It's probably pretty effective when you're as strong as he is. You know, Eidolon lets, Behemoth lets Eidolon escape with Rachel, doesn't bother destroying them. And then he is continuing to make his way toward Fierce, who had formed another portal and was gathering power for a second strike, although I don't know how powerful it could be at this point. And then Taylor orders a retreat. She's yelling it, but she only thinks Imp could have hurt her at this range. Yeah. Greg says they'd have to rename him from Bihemoth to Unihemoth if he was walking around on one leg. Does that mean that right now when he's moving on three limbs, he's Trihemoth? They've only increased his power. Anyway, arc stuff, like, it fits perfectly into the arc. I don't think they're doing anything special here in terms of, like, this thing's place in the storytelling. Like, this is just pretty direct, like, escalating action, rising action, whatever you want to say there. And the fact that things have not reached their zenith yet, the fact that there's still so much going on, it's crazy. Anyway, Greg says Trihemoth is acceptable. Yes. Yeah, so the chapter ends on a slightly hopeless, retreating note. Things have ebbed and flowed several times. There were several moments where it felt like a major blow would be struck against Behemoth. And they did do some things. They turned him from a thick boy to a stick boy. We'll see what comes of that development. And who does what. And what they feel about it in the next chapter. As far as characters, man, Taylor was untethered here. She was off the chain again. The stuff that she does with Particulate is bananas, because she, like, takes no time to decide, yeah, I'm gonna, like, go along with this plan so that I can betray this guy. That seems cool. Vic says, does that mean his kill aura is bigger or the same size? Like, does it extend out from his perimeter or his core? The fun answer is that the kill aura is littler now that he's a stick skeleton man. But the answer, I believe, is that it's the same size because all of his powers come from his core. That's my belief. But it's hard to know because I can't read everything Wildbow's ever written about this. It's on too many different disparate forums and things. Who knows if he's ever talked about this? Anyway, we'll take Particulate. Particulate doing something completely reckless. Who knows how much was explained to him if he knew that, like, the time bomb would explode if it, the time bomb would explode if Fierce died. So unclear if he was operating with that information or not. But still very reckless. I don't know that he could have disarmed the thing. I think he would have just got them all killed. And while Taylor could have shook her head no, she's like, but what if I betray this guy? Fierce, awesome, one of the best characters in the whole book. Love the conversation he has. Wish there were more moments for Taylor to talk with him and be like, I'm not like you. No, right? I'm not like that guy, right? No way. But she is. So if only we got more of that, but I love what we do get. I like that he's very predisposed to her, and like lets her get away with a lot. It's I don't know, it's pretty funny. He does give off dad energy when he like kind of I don't know. He lets her get away with a lot. I don't know. Not that all dads are like that, but you know, he's kind of like a screwball comedy dad, and he's like, all right. Fine. You can do a ploy that might have got us all killed, and I'll it was underhanded, so I liked it. So Fierce, great guy, better friend. As far as other people, Exalt, Dispatch, and I didn't mention the teleporter because he has no personality that we see. Exalt, Dispatch, and Revel. They all have different levels of sort of not being willing to work with Taylor at first. Although, funny enough, I just thought about this. In the same way that Fierce kind of bowls over Taylor's like stuff and like wins her over to his side with his like unmovability, she does the same thing with the Protectorate members. She's just like, I'm doing this. Oh, Vic says Taylor loves making people be her parents. Yeah, Fierce is totally her dad. Like I was trying to not say it, but like Fierce and her give off like father-daughter vibes, like in a way that Danny wishes, you know. Defiant and Dragon, Miss Militia, she sees them all as parental figures, yeah. Or maybe it's all she sees as parental figures. But anyway, agreed. Let's see here. Boop, 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 boop. So, yeah, the Protectorate members, they got on board in a similar fashion to Taylor's plan that she gets on to Fierce's plan. She's like, okay, well, I guess this is happening either way, so we have to do something. She convinces them of that. And I do think she's very good at the, like, general, like, I don't know, rallying capes to her side. That's something she's good at. Even if they don't start out on her side, she like gets these three to help her, so it works. In fact, I would say that she gets everyone who's left on the battlefield finally working together, something like that, maybe. Who else we got? The Yang Band. They give a little mea culpa, like, hey, look, our sure, something bad happened over. It's not even a mea culpa. It's like a not mea culpa. It's like, look, guys, this was all just a misunderstanding. Yeah. I misspoke at start. Definitely a not mea culpa. A new type of dealing with your problems. Much less responsible. But they sort of own up in a certain way to having a traitor. They admit, and then they decide that they're going to get into the fight on side with the heroes to try and smooth things over. Because they really fucked it all up for everybody. They really fucked it all up. So, we are at sort of the point of talking about Citrine and the Undersiders. I'll talk about Citrine real quick. We don't get a lot of character from her, but I do think it's telling that she takes off the impractical dress the second Accord is dead. She's just like, done with that. Rip in peace. I will genuinely miss you, but also no more dress. And then, not much more than that. It's kind of fun that Taylor saves her. You owe me one, Citrine. And then, as far as the Undersiders, Parian's super stressed. She doesn't say anything to Taylor, just pointing mid-battle, you know. Too concentrated on threads. She's like, look, I don't care. All I'm doing is doubling down on my bondage hobby. I mean, what? Oh, Parian. And then, she's like, when I get stressed, I really think about tying things up. Threads, I don't know. And we don't get much from Foil. She works on the plan, but of course, they're all going to work on the plan. Rachel and Tecton do have a funny interaction, and next chapter they'll have several more funny interactions, so they got some screen time. Imp, of course, upsetty spaghetti about Regent. In the in the words of Vic earlier, what did it say? Imp is very sentimental. Yeah, very sentimental. If this attack is for Regent, it's got to go right. My OTP torn apart heart, says Vic. An OTP. I mean, isn't the real OTP Taylor Amy? Vic says, I feel so sad for Imp. Yeah, I mean, I don't know why I'm so distant from the Regent death thing. I just don't, like, I can definitely feel some strong type of way about a lot of the things, but Regent's such a, and glad that Regent did something good. Yeah, I don't dislike this happening. Like, I'm not saying that this was some sort of bad story move in any way. I think that this was a good way for Regent to go out. But I guess I would have been interested to see what it was like longer term than a couple months for him to grow up and try to like reconcile. Like, the more time people had to sit with what happened, like what his past was and stuff, try to, like, you know. Oh, and Vic says, I will write the fanfic. I would enjoy that greatly. You know, sometimes fanfics written by friends can be a lot of fun. We've got a friend writing a fanfic at the moment. I'm not gonna get really into it because it has nothing to do with parahumans, but it's been quite fun to proofread and stuff. Vic says, Regent as a young adult. Oh, shout out the fic. It is in a Google Doc and not readable by the public. If it gets published, I swear I'll shout it out. But it is a private Google Doc that I am shared to. And so is Vic, actually. Mutual friend. What is it a fic of? Okay, well, that's the embarrassing part. I guess at this point I'll break down. Alien wants to know, and I will just say it is a fic trying to fix a lot of the things about Harry Potter, and not like logical inconsistencies in magic or whatever, but like from the point of the end of the third book, have the characters like try to sort of actually fix their problems rather than just kill some of the dark wizards that happen to be in power right now. And try to address things in a way that doesn't lead to... Harry Potter does go to a therapist. That's one of the core conceits. Is that in some... is the more gay? That's the main thing I want. Yes, actually. Harry is explicitly gay in this fanfiction. And Harry has romantic tension with Cedric during the majority of this portion, which is the only part that's being thought about right now is the fourth book, rewriting the fourth book from the ground up, and covering the entire summer after the third book. So it kind of weaves in a gay romance between them, and I actually don't know how the stuff in the third task happens. I don't know if Cedric still dies or not. So look, I can't be sure on the finer points of that. I think the furthest scene that's been written so far is the dinner before the Quidditch World Cup, because there's already like 10 chapters before that of other characters doing stuff in the summer. This is a fanfic. You know they get sprawling. Tight, never read Harry Potter. But yeah, no worries. You're good on that front. Greg says, whoa, systemic solutions. I don't know about that. Oh, man. Yeah. So yeah, it's pretty interesting. I don't know if it would be that enjoyable if you haven't already read Harry Potter, but a lot of stuff is being done to change the wording of sentences to just make them feel more like they came directly out of the book, in terms of like there are a lot of specific idioms they use in it. So it is pulling the style from the best bits of it, I guess. I don't know. Will you do a live stream on it? Maybe. I sort of want this to be more or less entirely a Parahumans channel. I'm not sure yet, but yeah, we'll see. Yeah. Anyway, I totally forgot what about Worm I had been talking about. Oh, maybe Plebeian Reads will do one. I would enjoy that greatly. And then Greg says Plebeian Reads fanfic. They were on the same page. Yeah. Where am I going with this? I'm going back to Worm. Who have we not talked about? Oh yeah, we were on the fanfic rabbit hole because of me wanting to see grown-up Regent and the book trying to address that. Are you going to do Ward after you finish Worm on this channel? Yes, definitely. I plan to more or less follow, like, maybe we'll do like a special event as a gap, but I don't intend to have like a intentional gap between streams. I would go right into Glowworm, with the exception of maybe like I don't know, like some kind of special thing, just because we might want to celebrate the end of Worm. By the time we get there, it's going to have been a long journey for us. So, anyway. Yeah, the chapters just got way too long to do 2 every week. It was getting out of hand. But, yeah, Regent's gone. I don't know. Well, they'll talk about it amongst themselves a lot next chapter, so we'll I'm sure have a lot more to say. And then, yeah. Vic says, I know, right? Imagine 2 word chapters a week. Oh, man. Yeah, and then Riley says, some of the hours are like, or interludes are like 3 hours long. Oh, I love Ward so much. I've been thinking about it so often recently, and how, like, I want so badly to talk to you about arc, well, 16 the most, but also arc 15 and also the end of it. Oh, but I want to talk to you about arc 16 so bad, and you're right at the start of 15. Oh my god. Someday. Someday. So, Alien says, still haven't gotten past the first couple of arcs. Do you have any idea what the last thing that happened? Maybe that's not a good thing. That'd be like too much medium spoilers. Do you have any idea what arc number? I can estimate in my head probably what you've seen, and then like be like, just push a little further. Lord, maybe like 4 or 5. Okay, so things were kind of heating up, but they weren't. Ward sort of like goes and goes and goes in terms of like, a lot of times when an event happens, it just like, I don't know. It extends and it exacerbates. Alien says, I'm mostly reading Pale now. Yeah, I've read like 5 arcs of Pale. I really like Pale, but it was sort of in a book club setting, and I couldn't keep up with the thing. It was like an arc a week, which I'm sure to many people that's not very much, but to me, an arc a week was very difficult to keep up with. Because an arc of Pale is like, oh, it's pretty long. Alien says an arc a week is wild. Yeah. Pale chapters get pretty long. I have to imagine they're about as long as Ward chapters. But I will say that the first interlude of Pale blew my socks off. I loved it. So that's maybe something to get people interested in reading Pale, is to have their socks directly fired off by the first interlude. Alien says, lol, the first interlude is my least favorite part. I loved it. I thought it was so well done. Yeah. But, you know, those Pale discussions for another day, perhaps. Is there another person in the roundup? A lot of the characters are already at the hospital that they're retreating to now, so they don't take part in this part of the battle. I didn't mention Foil. Oh, no, I did. That she's just sort of there and fighting. I think I've talked about everybody. Sort of back to Taylor for a moment. Oh, no, I didn't talk about the remaining Chicago wards. Cuff is battle-hardened. Grace was very temporarily mad that Taylor had seemingly abandoned them, but things got real fast. And she knew what was up. Golem's just doing his thing. Hands are flying everywhere. No more complaints out of him. Annex, he had a funny moment again, where he was like, are you sure that you want me in your costume? Yeah, I don't know. I'm done with the characters section. But the powers, knowledge, and world building, this one was excellent. Oh, you know what? I should say in the characters, I should mention, because I didn't, about Fierce. I think his minimal backstory was very well done. Really, you get a sense of him in a very short amount of time. You hear about his family. You hear about this choice he's made in the past. He sounds like future Taylor for sure. But anyway. Powers, knowledge, and world building. We get to see so much insane stuff happen. Behemoth almost flies through a water portal. Everybody's using their powers like even like more than before. They just keep doing it. We get to see clock blockers thing happen, and like for Behemoth to just take it and get cut up and just move on. So it's like simultaneously effective and ineffective. It's kind of cool. And again, it fits with the like Endbringers are holding back thing. Like they're constantly acting like the hits that are going against them are hurting them, but even the ones that do like way more damage basically don't do more damage. So there's this like falsehood to the way they're portraying themselves, and that's something to keep in mind. Is that there is very little value in like there's value in occupying Behemoth's time, but there's very little value in the damage that's actually being done unless they specifically like cut off a whole portion of a limb or something, like they do with his leg. So arguably the attack that Rachel did was more impactful to the remainder of the fight than the attack that Fierce did. I mean, it's important that they didn't screw up and destroy the whole like subcontinent with their misbegotten energy attack or whatever. So it's good that we've moved past that. But given that, Rachel and Foil did more damage. And Exalt. He was key to Rachel not getting got by that clap. So I'm impressed with Exalt in this moment for having waited like an hour-long battle where everyone's dying the whole time, and he's like, and perfect moment to be part of like the ultimate attack. So pretty cool. I don't know much about that Exalt, but he seems pretty good at knowing when to start blasting. A lot of capes, they do be blasting. Anyway, powers. Other cool stuff we saw, the way that they all came together to save Imp was very cool. Everyone was fighting super hard. Everyone was using their powers to the max. You know, they were all doing the thing. I didn't want to read like literally every paragraph, and yet in my heart, I did want to read all of them. So, you know that they're doing a good job of the fights and stuff when you're just like, but look at this cool part of the fight. And I am like that. I am that nerd right now. So you've done it, Wildbow. You captured me. And it's important that we've learned that Behemoth don't need that skin. He just doesn't need any of that. He can strike lightning even if he's just a stick. In fact, you could probably whittle away 2 of his legs, 1 of his arms, and his face, and he's just a core and an arm, and his arm's pointing everywhere, firing lightning bolts. He wouldn't be moving around super fast, but he'd still be a menace. So, all important knowledge when fighting Endbringers. Now we've got, we're going to move on from this, just the audience participation. I can tell that people's attention is probably flagging with all my nonsense. So, 24.4, who's your favorite Dark Horse character? in Parahumans. So, someone who has left a big impression on you and has very few scenes. And the reason I asked this question last week was because of Arbiter. But then, reading this chapter again, it's like, but also, like, this entire arc is just full of that. I think Exalt and Fierce and Dispatch are all, like, dope as hell. Like, Fierce more for his personality, and the other two more for their powers. But, like, in a superpower thing, sometimes you just need guys with cool powers. We can get into their personalities later. Alien says Narwhal. Yeah, I guess Narwhal's like a Dark Horse character, especially in Worm. But Narwhal gets more of a part in Ward, and I do feel like I know who she is to a greater degree, I guess, than some other lesser seen characters. Narwhal was one of my thoughts as well, says Greg. Woohoo! Multiple Narwhal. But I put a few names above her. First person to answer right away when the question was asked, same minute, was 2 + 4 × 5, who said Quinn Kaye, and people put some warm reacts on that, because of course, and I myself love Quinn Kaye. He's got the couple chapters in arc 22. He'll be mentioned a couple times in the book, and then we get a nice chance to see him near the end of the book, which I quite enjoy. Vic said, Damsel of Distress. In Worm only appears only 1 or 2 times, but I was always interested in hearing more about her. And then Greg said, Kaye would also be my pick, but I'd given an honorable mention to Danny. I think Danny breaks out of Dark Horse character. He's at the level of a Vista. He's a part-time player. Poor fellow didn't get much screen time, but he always made me feel when he was there. I'd also give a nod to Mouse Protector, who was barely there at all, but commands a disproportionate amount of fandom attention. Yeah, Mouse Protector is for sure a Dark Horse favorite. She's in 2 total scenes ever? But she gets a lot of I guess a lot of shine in one of her appearances. She's a lot of fun, and I have fond memories. Alien says maybe Lab Rat too. Yeah, Lab Rat really sticks out. He's in near the end of the thing, and he just gets a few good moments, and he kind of quips with another character, and that's a lot of fun. So yeah, that's a good list. If I were to say some of mine, I think some real side guys who don't get much time in the spotlight. Obviously, crowd favorite Hoyden. I always thought Hoyden's power was so cool and interesting. Later on, when we see Gavel get to do a thing, I was like, look, I know this guy's dead, but he's awesome. So Gavel, he's one of my answers. Not to say oh, Gavel was doing the right thing in his life. Just he gets to be a cool guy for 5 seconds, and I loved it. Who else gets Dark Horse favorite? Trying to think of people who really I wouldn't even count as background player status. I asked Kevin. I forgot. He didn't put it in the main chat, but when I asked Kevin the question, he said his first answer was immediately Chicken Large, which great answer from Ward, Chicken Large. But He said that he had been listening to the audiobook while he was doing errands and just like burst out laughing in the middle of a store. So that's a great moment. When he had first heard Chicken Large, the name. And then he said, for real though, Leet gets barely any characterization, and he's introduced very, very early. But since the powers as trauma bit becomes a lot more clear by the end, it's a super relatable power limitation. And I thought that was a pretty cool explanation. So, with all that said, there's a lot of, so I didn't have a question quite ready, but there's a lot of powers in this arc, as there are in all of the Endbringer style arcs, that we only see once. And I'll just do a similar one to the last one. I'll do, what's your favorite power that only appears once in Worm? Question mark. And let's copy paste this into the Discord so that I do not forget. Boom. All right, we're basically done. I'm gonna read the outro. And we'll hear the full version of the music, even the really, really peppy opening. We'll just think of it as comedy music while all these bad things are happening. So, the music you're hearing now is Crushed by ScarlettXOX. You can find her work at twitch.tv/Scarlett_Rogue. Our Discord server link, as well as the others, can be found in the stream description as well as the channel description. The author of the work being discussed can be supported on Patreon at patreon.com/Wildbow. The full text of the work is available for free online at parahumans.wordpress.com, and the fan-made audiobook of the entire work, again, also free, you can find at audioworm.rain-online.org. Maybe someday, I will get my shit together and get the links for the other audiobooks, but for now, one will have to be enough. I believe in people. You can find it through the search. We all have great power in our hands. Well, signing out. Next time, we'll be doing 24.5. Woo!